John Garrison Johnston, famously known as Liver-Eating Johnson, was born on the 1st of July 1824 in Little York, New Jersey. His mother was Eliza Garrison, and his father was Isaac Garrison, who was thought to be of Irish or Scottish descent. Johnston had 5 sisters, and it's also likely that he had a brother. Young Johnston had a hard time growing up, as his father Isaac frequently mistreated him. Not only was Isaac an alcoholic, but he also overworked his son. In order to repay the debts that he had accumulated, young Johnston had to work as a labourer on a farm, and many times he passed out due to exhaustion. Furthermore, Isaac has been described as an angry, brutal man, and it's likely that he beat Johnston when he was young. Although this may have toughened up young Johnston, it most certainly influenced his character, as he would go on to be a drunk, violent, quick-tempered man. As Johnston grew up, he could no longer tolerate this awful treatment. Now a young teen and old enough to fend for himself, he decided to leave home, and not too long after, he found work hunting whales on a coastal schooner. Time passed quickly, and before he knew it, he had spent around 12 years out at sea. Johnston became tired of this line of work, and decided it was time for something more exciting. By now, he had developed into a very large man, measuring over 6 feet tall and weighing around 260 pounds. Furthermore, he was described as being all muscle and having almost no fat. In 1846, the Mexican-American War broke out. Now 22 years old, Johnston decided to enroll in the US Navy, yet his career as a sailor was short-lived. While on deck, one of Johnston's comrades was punished by a lieutenant. Angered by this, Johnston's impulsiveness led to him striking his superior officer, a blow which landed on his neck and temporarily knocked him out. Dazed, the lieutenant picked himself up, but he wasn't exactly sure as to what happened, though he suspected it was Johnston. As a result, Johnston was punished and wasn't allowed to leave shore for a whole month. When Johnston was finally able to step on land, he deserted the US Navy and wandered off into the Great Wild West. To avoid being caught, which could result in execution by hanging, he changed his name from John Johnston Garrison to just John Johnson. It's believed that he made his way to California, where he spent time mining just before the start of the gold rush. Following this, Johnson travelled east, passing through Colorado, and then north through Wyoming, eventually ending up in the Alder Gulch territory in southern Montana. There, he worked as a woodcutter, and thanks to his large build, he was very good at providing cordwood to steamboats. Yet, he also did many other jobs, including hunting, trapping, and bootlegging. It was during this time that he met his lifelong friend and partner, J.X. Beidler. Both men enjoyed drinking and had a violent nature, which they thrived off. Despite Johnson being a skilled mountain man, he spent most of his time in Montana, fighting the Native Americans. It was now that the myth surrounding Johnson's life started to grow. Legend tells that while in Montana, he met a young woman belonging to the Flathead Indian tribe. She eventually became his wife, and together they lived in a log cabin which Johnson had built himself. Of course, it wasn't long until Johnson's wife became pregnant, and it seemed that he was finally able to live a nice, peaceful life. But it wasn't to be. One day in 1847, while Johnson was out, a group of Native Americans belonging to the Crow tribe raided his home. Sadly, Johnson's pregnant wife was killed in the encounter, and his house was burned to the ground. Once Johnson learnt of this, he swore to hunt down the Crow tribe and get his revenge. Johnson was a good fighter and an even better hunter. He was well equipped and started to take the lives of his enemies. Once the Crow chief heard of this, he sent a party consisting of his 20 best warriors to take care of Johnson once and for all. But they failed, Liver-Eating Johnson had slain every last one of them. According to this tale, Liver-Eating Johnson got his nickname because for each crow that he killed, he would cut out their livers and eat it. For the Crow tribe, livers were essential for entering the afterlife, so by eating it, Johnson was showing the utmost disrespect to the tribe by taking away the dead's possibility of an afterlife. Johnson was relentless. To avenge his late wife's death, it's thought that he killed over 300 people belonging to the Crow tribe. By now, his reputation had grown to such an extent that Native American tribes cowered by simply hearing his name. However, Johnson's vendetta against the Crow was interrupted when he was abducted by a group of Native Americans belonging to the Blackfoot tribe. Knowing that the Crow would pay a handsome price for him, they tied him up in leather straps and stripped him to his waist until they could meet up with their buyers. However, the Blackfoot tribe hugely underestimated Liver-Eating Johnson's abilities, only assigning one person to guard his teepee. It wasn't long until Johnson broke free of his leather straps and knocked out the guard. After this, he quickly made his way out of the Blackfoot's camp and into the woods. It was even rumoured that he was so hungry that he cut off one of the guard's legs, which he ate during his escape. Remarkably, while fleeing from the Blackfoot tribe, Johnson ran into his old partner, who helped him find his way back home. According to the tale, around 25 years after his wife's death, Liver-Eating Johnson finally made peace with the Crow tribe. It's believed this pact was due to the rising danger from the American frontier wars and the increasing violence between Native American tribes. Nevertheless, this popular tale involving Johnson's wife, his vendetta, and his thrilling escape was actually a myth. There's no real evidence that supports this tale, and on many occasions, Johnson stated that it was false. He strongly claimed to have never had a wife. Apparently, the story came from him escorting a Native American woman to a frontier post. Upon their arrival, she claimed that they were man and wife to keep him from being harassed. Furthermore, his military record makes no mention of a personal war against the Crow. In actual fact, for the most part, he was on good terms with the Crow tribe. One source even claims that he'd been made a chief of the Crow Nation out of their respect for him. Although Johnson did admit to killing some Crow warriors, these were all in self-defense. With the outbreak of the Civil War, Johnson decided to enlist in the Union Army, joining the 1st Division 2nd Colorado Cavalry 4th Brigade H Company as a scout. By now, he was 39 years old. Again, Johnson's time in the armed forces was short-lived. After just 5 days, he deserted the army, spending all the money he earned on whiskey. Despite this, he was later reassigned to the 2nd Regiment. Whether he was punished for deserting or managed to bluff his way out of it is unknown. In any case, in October 1864, Johnson fought in the Battle of Westport, which resulted in him being shot in the leg and shoulder. Once he healed, Johnson continued to fight in the Civil War until he was discharged on the 23rd of September 1865. Unsure what to do now, Johnson decided to go home and stick to what he knew best, such as working in the goldfields, peddling alcohol, and chopping down trees. Of course, he spent most of his hard-earned cash on his whiskey addiction. While working as a woodcutter, or woodhawk as it was known, Johnson and his partner were frequently attacked. Woodhawking always had its dangers, but as they were camped in the heart of Siouxland, many believed that they were signing their death warrant. In the summer of 1868, a total of 7 woodcutters were reported to have been killed in the local area. Of course, their location led to them frequently being attacked, but luckily, Johnson and his partner always made it out alive. That same year, while working at the mouth of the Musselshell River, Johnson and other woodcutters were ambushed by 6 men belonging to the Sioux tribe. A gunfight ensued, with men on both sides being injured and one of the Sioux tribe men having died. Shortly after this, the fight evolved into a stalemate. Despite this, Johnson went out onto the open ground and pretended to feast on a small piece of liver that he removed from his knife. The 5 surviving Sioux and his companions all thought it was real. It was here that he was named Liver-Eating Johnson. Aside from cutting wood for steamboats, Johnson also trapped and hunted inside the Sioux territory. They were not welcoming of him. Not only did they steal his traps and pelts, but on one occasion they even forced their way into his cabin, waiting for him to return home in order to ambush him. Because of this, Johnson had to lay traps. This included poisoned meat and a small tunnel underneath his cabin in case he was raided. When Johnson realized something was off, he crawled into his tunnel and would shoot the Native Americans from under the floorboards. Johnson thrived in this mountain man lifestyle and carried on well into his 40s. He took part in every big fight and even became a scout for General Miles. Yet, by now his bootlegging days were over. He knew the dangers of peddling whiskey, and his old age meant that the risks were just far too great. For years he made great money in this trade, especially as he was daring enough to travel through the Whoop Up territory, which was considered one of the most dangerous and hostile areas for a white man to go. Sticking to a safer line of work, for a time he guided trips into the mountains in southern Montana. He also carried on his usual habits of hunting and trapping, though he did try one business venture, as for a time he established a stagecoach line. During the 1880s, he became a lawman in Colson, a town in Marshall in Red Lodge, Montana. Yet, the work was uninteresting, so he decided to join a Wild West show. But this career path didn't last. It's been stated that Johnson hated Bill Cody. Also, he wasn't satisfied with his pay, so Johnson quit and returned to Colson. Tired of being with other people and wanting a quiet life alone, he built himself a cabin in the woods to live out his days. However, he would soon become the town's sheriff, a position that he remained in until his retirement in 1894. He lived in the town for a few more years until he was placed in a veterans hospital in Santa Monica, California in December 1899. He died just 1 month later, on the 21st of January 1900. John Johnston was buried in a veterans cemetery in Los Angeles. However, after negotiations and a campaign led by a group of young students in June 1974, Johnson's remains were relocated to the old trail town in Cody, Wyoming. The town is just 65 miles from his former cabin in Red Lodge, and was one of his favourite places. In 1972, a film based on Robert Bunker's book, Crow Killer, The Saga of Liver-Eating Johnson, was released. The film was called Jeremiah Johnson, and it starred Robert Redford. Both the book and film are based loosely on his life, and varied from the true story. Thank you everyone for watching this video on John Johnston or Liver-Eating Johnson. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, leave me a like down below. And if you have any suggestions, please send me an email or leave a comment. Anyway, that's all from me, so I'll see all of you in the next Forgotten Life. Thanks!